So, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our fourth session of COVID-19, the Game Changer. Today is a very special event, and not only because we are doing it in English, but because of the great audience that we have and the great webinars that we have been conducted so far. So just to recap, why are we doing this and who we are? My name is Jamal Al-Ustaz, and I am the reason behind kicking off this initiative, trying to understand how COVID-19 will affect different sectors, become a game changer on different aspects of life. And today's session is on the title, what will be the effect on incubators and accelerators? And very quickly and briefly, an incubator is like a very small baby that is not born yet. So we work with them through the idea till we form an idea and we bring a baby out. However, an accelerator, we have a little bit of a younger boy, 2-3 years old, maybe a couple of months older, that we are trying to give him some muscle and strength so he can boost his career and grow. In this journey, Mr. Mohammed Nuwaitu from Startup Grind Mecca, he will be co-moderating this panel with me.
Thank you very much, Jamal, for the introduction, and welcome all of our panelists. It will be our pleasure tonight. It will be a nice journey, and wish all our attendees enjoy it. Let me start with our first questions that we are going to ask. As you are all main ecosystem players in your regions and in your countries, how COVID-19 has affected your entrepreneurship ecosystem, how it has been affected the deal flow. And let me start with Mr. Ryan, if you can share with us how this has been the effect.
Allow me to introduce yourself, yes, please, what you are doing, and then go ahead.
Yes, sure. Okay. Yes. Go.
Sure.
So, Ryan.
My name is Ryan Sharif. I'm the Managing Director of Flat 6 Labs Bahrain. Flat 6 Labs was actually established in Egypt, Cairo in 2011, and we've scaled across all the Middle East and North Africa. So now we have 7 different locations. How has it affected us? Well, it's affected every single office. I mean, today we're all not in the office. We're conducting all of our sessions online. And for the businesses, a lot of them have had to change and pivot their businesses in order to be truly digital businesses in order to get the same traction that they've got before. And then in terms of the fundraising as well, I mean, the fundraising has been tough. You have a lot of VCs that had other commitments, and now they have to double down on those previous commitments in order to try and keep certain companies alive. And then the ones that were seeking funding previously are not getting the funding that they truly deserve because of the situation.
And has this affected the deal flow and increase it or decrease it, changes the quality of the deal flow in any sort?
It depends really. So it depends on the industry sector that you're currently in. So there's, certain applications which are perhaps, let's say, booking platforms that have been, significantly negatively impacted. So we've had certain lifestyle and health and fitness apps, which we've invested in now that would struggle to find follow-on funding because all the gyms are closed. However, on the flip side to that, we've had companies in the ed tech space, which are communication platforms for schools, which help teachers, parents, and faculty to communicate with one another. And then all of a sudden, we've got a mass increase in telephone calls for them to come in and establish and set up. So the deal flow has been mixed and varied. I would say that, 50% have seen a big hit on their investment deal flow, but the other 50% have ramped up. And because their numbers have ramped up in such a significant way, they've been very fortunate and actually getting strong deal flow perhaps that they wouldn't have got because their sales are so high now.
Okay. Ms. Robin, does the situation is the same in UAE?
Generally, yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Robin Brazil. I'm the director of Start AD, based here in Abu Dhabi and New York University's Abu Dhabi campus. And we run various different programs for university students, and also a global accelerator, a global corporate accelerator. So my perspective is pilots and partnerships, what's happening on the corporate perspective. We don't fund directly into our accelerator, and that's actually something we're looking to fill that gap because we do have a small seed fund. So absolutely, to Ryan's points, same things are applying. The only things I would add is also, especially B2B companies, corporates were already conservative, and they are even more so, with some very notable exceptions, however, in retail, surprisingly. And I think in some industries that they were already super slow to go digital. Now they are desperate. So some of those industries, surprisingly, we're actually getting a lot of feedback and a lot of interest from those partners to run accelerator programs, to match make with startups. It's cost is finally driving that, not their slowness to technology adoption. We'll see how we'll muddle through that process, but those are the only things I would add, is that it's a real struggle, especially for early stage companies that haven't yet have a track record with corporate clients. They're not getting their foot in the door, but again, some really surprising exceptions to these cases. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah. Okay, good, Jamal.
No. I'm just saying it brilliant. It was a very quick summary. Lovely.
Yes.
Thanks.
Let's go to Lujain and then Daniel.
Thank you. So my name is Lujain Nassif. I'm the Venture Lab Manager at Prince Mohammed bin Salman College for Business and Entrepreneurship, located in Cake, Saudi Arabia. We're seeing a lot of similar changes to what Ms. Robin and Mr. Rayyan mentioned. I think also that is very important to add is that we are receiving good governmental support to startups, which is helping them here in Saudi Arabia. But we are also noticing that a lot of startups, especially in the tourism and entertainment sectors, which were flourishing just a month ago here in Saudi, or 2 months ago here in Saudi, and they have been hit the hardest. So a lot of these startups have had to re-examine their business models, see how they can pivot, or what it is that exactly that they can do. And this is what we are noticing here. So maybe that's something to add to what is happening in the other areas in the region.
Danny.
To me, yeah.
Hey. It's what time is it in Birmingham at the moment?
Birmingham, it is currently 20 to 7 in the evening, so only a couple of hours behind you guys in the Middle East.
We are expecting quite a holistic overview for UK and the EU.
Yeah, I think that, well, first to introduce myself, my name is Daniel Evans, Chief Executive of Birmingham Enterprise Community, which is an organisation that supports emerging entrepreneurs here in the UK. Not exclusively UK entrepreneurs, we have seen international entrepreneurs also come onto the programme as well. I think the thing I really like about this event so far is the fact that we're in different parts of the world, but a lot of the challenges are the same. You know, the things that the three previous speakers have been kind of citing is the same that we're seeing here, seeing across Europe as well. I guess where there is variance is on that response by governments. I know it's just kind of been touched on briefly in terms of what's happening in Saudi, but in the UK, we've seen a very mixed response. Firstly, the government were very slow to help startups, help businesses. First wave of support came through in terms of loans, but that left a big gap in terms of businesses who are early stage ventures, have not started to produce revenue yet, weren't eligible for the loan. So what do? We've just seen this week launched a fund called the Future Fund, which is a co-investment fund backed by the UK government. So really with that, we're going to see some support pick up in terms of ventures who have raised 250,000 in equity finance plus. It's the earlier stage ventures we're still not sure on at the moment. Those guys don't know what quite's going to happen. Quite a few have tried to pick up opportunities, as Ryan mentioned at the start. If you can be somebody that's solving a problem at this current time, you can potentially put yourself in a position where you can unlock funding, unlock business. So a lot of the startups that we work with have been seeing how they can take what they already do and apply it into a different context.
Dr.
Okay.
Majid?
Dr. Majid, yes.
Great. So my name is Magid Ghanima. I'm the director of the iHub, the Innovation Hub. We're more of a innovation and entrepreneurship center that started in one of the universities in Egypt, and right now we exist in 44 locations across Egypt. The focus itself is how to go ahead and push more a young undergrads or even graduates to be more innovative, and how to support them so that they can push their startups forward. During the past couple of months, I would see that there were definitely downsides, just like what all of you said, and I think it's the same that we have over here in Egypt. Many of the startups that are in certain sectors, such as event management, anything that is related to the entertainment business, anything happening on the ground, were really hit hard. And this is where we were working hardly, a lot with them in the past couple of months, so that we can help them pivot how to go ahead and re-strategize so that they can overcome this period. However, there were other startups as well that really had a golden opportunity for them. Anybody that was in the field of healthcare, anybody that was in the field of e-commerce and the delivery business and so on. These are people that really had, and EdTech as well. These are all companies that really had a great opportunity. And one of the very strong things that we have over in iHub is that we have a extremely strong relationship inside the government itself, directly. I would say even right now, we do have a direct reporting to the Prime Minister. So, and we also have more than 150 partners. We're talking about large corporates. What we've seen in the market over here in Egypt is that there are huge amount of opportunities that opened up, but unfortunately, government and the large corporates are too slow to fill in the gap. So this is where we saw an opportunity for our startups to help them push it to fill in this gap. And this is where we were more of the matchmaker. We had 3 new startups that came up in the last couple of weeks, and we have enabled more than 20 other startups to get more deals that in the past month than what they had in the past probably 6 months. And I'm talking only about a few of them. So it's again is how we can work out with our startups, with our connections, to help those who really have a great opportunity so that they can accelerate, and also looking at those that were affected and how we get itself, and at the same time we're helping them mitigate all these issues that they're going through in this period.
So what are those 3 startups? Like they started in the last couple of weeks. In which domain are they?
They're all in the medical devices. So as you know, there is a huge shortage right now inside the ventilator domain. So we were able in the past 4 weeks to have 3 different ventilator models, which are ICU grade. 2 of them are coming up from one of these startups. Another one was looking into more of the accessories that goes into all of the ventilator ICU related items. We've always been dependent on imported goods. So this is where we went ahead, we reverse engineered some of the items that we had already. We do have inside iHub a design house. So we have a group of 20 subject matter experts with more than 30 years of experience. And this is where we supported these groups of entrepreneurs to be able to develop their ideas and push it all the way up to manufacturing. And this is what I just probably came in today from a meeting with one of these startups, which was just created, called Abyssina. And they have two models for ventilators. There's another one which is looking in for all the different accessories that you need for ICUs and ventilators, looking into cannulas, looking into the patient circuits and stuff like that. And there is another third one, which is more into medical software, which is extremely needed right now with the government itself. And this is where we are about to close, to sign, but we've already had the verbal agreement for them to go ahead and push tons of services apps and the platforms that they want to build from scratch for the Ministry of Health inside Egypt.
That's very interesting. And when you say that we are building products and things like that, are you looking into the patents? Like, are you creating patents as well? Because you know, pushing it to the market, it might be an exact version or a replica version, and so on and so forth. So two questions here that are arising. First of all, is the patenting process going that fast? Number one. Number two, how are you bridging the gap between labs and the university research to push to the market?
This is an extremely important question, and I'm glad that you actually raised it. I'm going to answer the second question first. Looking into the university world and looking into all the different technologists, the researchers, there's a technology readiness level scale. I'm not quite sure if people are aware of it or not. And it usually takes a product from idea all the way to where the technology is ready for actual mass manufacturing. And it's called the TRLs, the technology readiness levels. And it goes all the way from TRL 0 all the way up to TRL 9. Usually, whatever happens inside the university lab, these great innovators and researchers can take an idea all the way up to TRL 3, where you have a really good proof of concept, which is tried out in some one of the labs inside the university. But when you go ahead and talk with people inside the actual the manufacturing facilities, inside the industry itself, and you want them to go ahead and push that to have a real product, these are people that we usually interact with, people inside the university, and they're expecting you to interact with them somewhere between TRL 7. So there's always this valley of death inside this TRL and MRL interaction, which is whatever happens between TRL 4 and TRL 6. And this is what we noticed in the past 10 years, that this was the main reason why most of the ideas that came out of universities never actually made it out to the industry. And this is where we created this design house, and this is the actual role that iHub plays, is how do we go ahead and take the needs that the industry wants and doesn't really have, and how we can go ahead and connect them with some of these great researchers to help them out, or vice versa, where you have these great ideas and you want to push them out so that you can get these new startups and ideas out. So this is where our role is. So right now we have huge manufacturing facilities in Egypt, maybe they might not be known outside of Egypt, but we're talking about Sweetie, we're talking about Fresh, we're talking about Mobica. These are people that have hundreds of lines. Now is that gap between products, so they can be manufactured and creating a virtual factory, say, with different manufacturers. We can go ahead and push these products out. But again, we're still in that planning phase, but I would say that some of them are at TRL 6 right now. Some of them are somewhere close to TRL 7. First product coming out being pushed to the market. Others are going to take some time until maybe June. To answer the first question that you asked, the patenting need. The problem right now is that most of the patenting processes that are going on in Egypt, at least, are actually on hold. So we don't really have the opportunity to patent all of these ideas. And to be also honest, most of the products that we're doing don't really have much of the innovation in terms of the product itself, because they're actually replicating many of the products that exist right now. But most of the innovation is actually, how can we get this out into the market in record time? This is where most of the innovation is coming in right now. How can I go ahead and take a process that usually takes 9 months and do that in 9 days? How can I come up with really innovative ways so that I can design, manufacture my molds so that I can push out injection molding, for instance? So we do have a lot of the innovation inside the process itself, more than the product. However, starting from today, we started putting in, now that we have a working industrial prototype, now it's time to go ahead and build on top of it. And this is where it's going to be important to see, well, once we have new features coming out, a new version of this product, how can we push it? How can we patent all of these ideas and patent all of these new products? It's a question. I'm not quite sure if the USPTO is actually working right now as it was or not, but at least in Egypt, things are really on hold.
Okay. Thanks for your great elaboration, Dr. Majid. And this takes me to the next point with Ms. Lujain. As an embassy has been doing and contributing in a lot of entrepreneurship effort in the MENA region and even internationally. What is the new trends? Because it's look very clear that the medical is on fire everywhere. What is the new trends that incubators and accelerators are facing currently, specifically in the MENA region and around the globe, if you have this?
Okay, so if we want to focus on accelerators and incubators, and I believe my colleagues can add and contribute to this point, we're all trying as best as we can to move virtually, just like all the other businesses out there, basically. So we're trying to offer as many services as we can online and move our incubator, accelerator, bootcamp programs online. So Mr. Ryan was saying, for instance, that he had to host an evaluation session to see the candidates, how good the candidates are to join a program. We have mentoring sessions, we have legal services, consultation services, everything has to go online. Now, there is a trend to move completely online, and then other entities or accelerators and incubators are considering a hybrid program. So some services will be online, some may be paused until we see what happens. And then there are other entities that are only moving essential services online, and the remaining is paused until we see what's happening. Are we going to open up our doors again anytime soon or not? So even within the accelerator and incubator ecosystem, there is hesitancy maybe, or I don't want to say hesitancy, but it is taking a bit longer to move everything online. This is just an honest opinion looking at what is happening across the MENA region. Also, in terms of what are the trends in industries, there's definitely a movement in health tech. Any kind of application, service, website, program that supports health industry is definitely going up. Logistics as well, edutech. 3D printing, for instance, is also seeing a rise. We have a business in the part of the MBSC community that focuses on 3D printing, for instance, and they're doing a great job collaborating with different governmental agencies, providing them with parts that they usually import, for instance. Now they're doing it for them here, producing it in Saudi. You have health tech. Health tech is a huge, huge industry. Usually when people think of health tech, the first thing that comes to mind is maybe products that are, or technologies, but there's also, for instance, psychology applications, providing support online. This is a business that we have that's flourishing for us. EduTech, as I mentioned, there's also a lot of home sporting equipment. So businesses that do provide that, any business that provides groceries definitely is going up in Saudi as well. So these are the trends that we're seeing. E-commerce is skyrocketing in Saudi Arabia. I mean, the way that how quickly, for instance, Saudi Arabia is adapting or adopting e-commerce has been amazing. If you asked me a question about e-commerce 5 years ago in Saudi, I would have been like, you know, still getting there. But now, since everything has happened, I believe I read a statistic somewhere that was like 300% increase in online uses of credit cards and so on. So online transactions have gone up in Saudi. So there is definitely a big change and a shift. And you see this shift in companies and as well in consumers adopting online services and products. So yeah.
Well, this is magnificent. I mean, the change that we have been seeing in the kingdom across the last 2 years and the new industries that are happening is as good as what is happening globally. And this will take me to Daniel, like across the sea. We would like to know what is exactly happening as well. You guys are one of the leading EU incubators with with a creative business model. So how does COVID impacted the incubator business model? Like, what are the challenges? Are you guys going to pivot? Are you going to change how you are operating? Are you going to change your funding schemes? Are you going to change from an incubator to an accelerator? We would like to hear what is happening on the other part of the world.
Cool. I think we obviously we're geared up for our kind of next cohort, which was beginning this month. Had to, at the start of the year, planned out what 2020 looked like for us in Birmingham. All of a sudden, when we hit March and things got significantly worse in the UK and in Europe, those plans had to go. We had to kind of scrap those plans and start fresh and think, okay, what's going on? How can we quickly get a grasp of the situation? Because as we always feel that with the startups that we support, we have to lead by example. So if we're telling them to be agile, to be responsive, we have to do that ourselves. So we knew that we wanted to get our heads around what was going on as quickly as possible, so that then we could go back to those startups, go back to that community and say, okay, this is what we think is happening and this is how we can help you to respond. So that meant spending the first kind of 2 weeks reassessing our plan, reassessing our model as a accelerator program, to decide what would be the best movement forward. When we looked at that, obviously, as has been mentioned, things for now have to move digital. We were in a fortunate situation where we had that blended approach. So all of our sessions were both held physically and streamed as well. We have mentors across the globe, and many of them are accessed through virtual calls regularly. So we were kind of geared up to make the fully digital move. And now we believe we're in a position where once we know, say in kind of June or July, if we're able to get out and hold physical sessions again, we can quickly make that shift back to a physical accelerator, or probably maintain some of those digital elements as well. As I said, in terms of the business model, we've tried to think about how we can widen the support that we offer. There's a lot of people looking at the opportunities that this has created to solve problems now, but also in a post-COVID world. There's a lot of people who have, I guess, reevaluated their lives as well. They may have for a long time thought, okay, I'd like to start a business, I've got these ideas, have kind of been working, so I've not had time to take action on them. Those people are suddenly thinking, okay, life can change pretty quickly, so now is the time to take action on that. So again, we want to widen our support so that we can start to embrace those people at an early stage, help them along that journey all the way up to where they're ready to scale in the accelerator program. And then I think the final consideration for us on a funding point of view is the changes in that makeup in funding. We were looking at raising an investment fund earlier in the year, which has of course been delayed. I wouldn't say in the UK and Europe the money has stopped. There's a couple of people that have put hold on what they're doing for now to assess the situation. A couple of people are still open for business. We've had businesses close rounds in the UK recently, but again, they are probably the result of the last 12 months. So it's really in about kind of 6 months, we'll see what is actually going on from an investment point of view. What we're anticipating is big government support into initiatives to help more businesses, help to grow businesses, and we're looking at how we can capitalize on that as soon as it becomes available.
Okay. But let me get back to Mr. Daniel. In one question, you think that post COVID-19, we will get all our activities back to become physical. So are we speaking here that you will become physical again, or you will adapt to the online methodology or the online approach even after COVID-19? What do you think about the comparison here?
So I guess for example, if I take context here in the UK, you know, nobody knows when we will come out of lockdown and businesses can reopen. Let's say, for instance, kind of June, the government decide, okay, we're going to let people go out, restaurants can open, workspaces can open. That doesn't necessarily mean that businesses are going to want to open in June. Confidence is a big thing. For some people, they may not feel comfortable going out in public, in crowded spaces. So I think we have to be prepared to offer both. So to those people who want to come in, want to get it back in the co-working space and take the benefits of being in a physical community, that's there for them. For those who are not yet ready for that and want to kind of be cautious, we're also able to offer the support to them as well by simply having both.
Okay.
I'd like to add to what Daniel mentioned here is that I completely agree with what he's saying. You know, the current norm might just become the normal norm moving forward. I think that in all industries, there might have been a hesitancy to move online, but now that everyone is going online, it's going to be hard to go just face to face and give up the benefits of being online. So there are definitely benefits and negatives to what is happening here. I believe it is now our responsibility to try to support as many entrepreneurs as possible. And even after, in the next coming months, coming out of COVID-19, there will still be entrepreneurs that are not able to come and meet us face to face just because of their physical location, for instance. So even if they, for instance, in Saudi right now, almost all the cities, you can't move out of your own neighborhood. So this is a huge issue without a permit. But once they lift this ban, maybe they're not going to be quick to lift the ban of traveling between cities and so on. So definitely having the online option to support is very important moving forward. Yeah. Definitely.
I'd also like to add one thing that probably Lujane just said. A few months, I think it was about October, we started a virtual incubation model, which was really helpful as we entered this period right now. And we found out that actually all of our incubation services are now provided online, and it's the virtual incubator that's actually taking over. So I think it's something that maybe many other incubators need to look into in how to have that, so that you can actually enable and support more entrepreneurs that may not be in your own vicinity. The second point that Daniel said that I would like to comment on is that it's always great to have the government step in, but I can see that the government itself right now are in big trouble. They're facing a lot of obstacles and a lot of things that are really slowing them down in all aspects. I don't want to say that they don't need to look into supporting startups and entrepreneurs. No, they should. But I think they have a lot of other priorities. So if we're just going to, and this is where I see that just like there are a lot of problems happening inside, a lot of opportunities that are opening up. Opportunities because some of those big giants in the market are now looking into other ways that they can put their money in, put their efforts in, can play that role being the matchmaker. We know our startups well. We know our entrepreneurs really well. Maybe they're working in a certain line of business, but they have the skills to pivot. Why not just go ahead and put some of our effort in matchmaking between these huge industrial partners that we know and between our startups to help both of them in a win-win situation.
That's magnificent what you are saying, and this will take me directly to Mr. Ryan. Flat 6 Labs, an accelerator around the globe, managing a lot of things. How are your portfolio behaving at the moment? How are your startups behaving at the moment?
Yeah, as I mentioned at the beginning, it's been a really mixed bag. So you have certain platforms. I'll give you live examples because it's always good to use live examples. Yep. So we have a company called Telp, which is Tutor Help. They joined our program in Bahrain about 10 months ago. They then went into 500 startups program, and they've gone on to scale now to be a $4 million company. They were a face-to-face tutor app where you would book in a tutor session and then you would meet face-to-face, have the tutoring, and then, that's how it would work. They didn't have any form of digitization within the app, but it was quite simple for them to add a video module into the app during this COVID-19 crisis. And actually what they've learned from it was, why didn't we do this earlier on? Why didn't we have this video capability earlier on? Because it's helped boost our revenues so much. Also, it's got them to think more about the revenue model generally in terms of, is there other forms of classrooms that they could do, or is there other forms of storytelling that they could do? And these are all different slight pivots within, a product that already existed that is going to help them grow and scale across the GCC and across the globe. So what I would say is the ones that weren't truly digital are now really thinking about what can we do in order to incorporate this into our product. And the ones that have been struggling, like in the sectors that we talked about in wellness and gym related services. We have another one called TOTS. It's an app which connects parents and vendors. So for soft play, or if you're going to a mall and there's an event there and so forth, it's basically a main dashboard which tells you exactly where these activities are happening. Obviously, all the malls are shut. A lot of the vendors are closed. So there's no way for them to monetize at the moment. So instead, what they've done is they built an in-app shop where parents can buy toys and gifts for their children. So it's all these little pivots that we're finding. And the ones that are not pivoting are not working hard enough, in my opinion. So a lot of them can sit there and feel sorry for themselves that their app isn't working out, and the situation is the way the situation is. But the true strong founders are the ones that look at this as an opportunity, take it on the chin and really try and find a way to help to monetize even in this rough period of time.
Okay, this will take me to Ms. Robin and ask her. It's very clear now that there is certain sectors that is flourishing and glowing, and there is other sectors that start to have complications or maybe have difficulties. Do you see, what is your expectations for the future? Do you see that most of the startups and applications deal flow that we will see in the future are moving in the 5-6 sectors that has mentioned before by Ms. Lujain, which is edutech, health tech, and something like this? Or we will see the same diversity before COVID-19?
So I think what's happening now, and I think everybody's kind of said it to some degree, is you're just seeing trends that have already been happening accelerated. So you're just seeing leaps that are happening. I think the one industry we haven't really talked much about, and maybe Ryan can talk, because Bahrain is a financial center as well, is financial services. I think we're going to see a leap in where commercial banks have been very slow to adopt. They have very bogged down by their legacy systems. They very quickly are going to be forced into digitizing. And then another sector that I think may not be top of mind is you have a lot of these startups, for startups and SMEs, that are going to flourish. So these are companies that provide back office services, enterprise systems, to manage invoicing and credit and HR and benefits and insurance, all of these things that are aimed at the SME and startup market. I think we're going to see those flourish, as well as, I think, in a bit, while I think freelancers are really, really impacted right now, I think some of the marketplaces for freelancers. So we work with a company called Scalable CFO. They provide, consultant services at a fractional cost, and they have online systems to support it. I think not now, but I think in the future, it's going to accelerate also the gig economy, because now we're all so comfortable working remotely from home. People are going to be much more comfortable managing other individuals remotely as well. So I see that as maybe not immediately, but some of the things to look forward to maybe in the next year or two.
Brilliant.
Go, Mr. Jamal.
No, I just wanted to add, like, with regards to some of, we could see a lot of layoffs, a change in the working system. So what about legal startups, like those aggregators or marketplaces that could be of
100%.
support? We've seen things like Qafnoon coming
Professional
in
services,
Saudi, professional services. Do you
all
see
of it.
a place for them?
It already was something that was really interesting. I mean, of course, you have the issues with any marketplace, but I think, again, it's going to accelerate a trend. The traditional, law firm business models, the consulting firm business models, all ripe for disruption. So I think they are quickly going to realize that they need to either be a part of it. And you see some actually huge blue chip law firms actually running their own incubators and accelerators right now. So they're completely aware of it. Same with all the big four. Now they're trying to run their own incubators, accelerators, some for business development and some for, pivoting their own business models. So I 100%, I think that it's, at least personally, I think there's a lot of potential there.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Mohammed, you wanted to take the next question with regards to the IP services,
Yes.
if I heard correctly.
Yes, the IP, especially I was going to Miss Robin back again and to Miss Jane. Both are tied to universities, and a lot of startups and a lot of entrepreneurs emphasize and are very keen for getting an IP. We want to set it clear, when is the right moment to start creating an IP for your startup, and what is the startup that doesn't need an IP? And let me start with Mrs. Robin.
Sure. Okay, so we, while we've been around for 4 years, research commercialization is just kind of a recent focus for us in the past 2 years because it is extremely challenging and difficult. And IP is just one of those elements to consider. I think just some very common misperceptions is that a patent rules everything. It's not a right to practice. It's a defensive mechanism, actually. So I think that's something to be considered as well. And then you truly, other considerations is not everybody needs a patent. I mean, not everything is patentable. So I think it really, really depends. If you are talking true deep tech, coming from lab to market, yes, 100%. Most likely there's something patentable in there, and the time to patent that, it usually comes to us when they've already filed a provisional patent and they're just starting to think about what is the potential for this to be commercializable. So we usually recommend, filing that provisional patent early when possible, but there's a huge extraordinary cost associated with that. So if you're within a university, you normally have those services provided for you. I know certainly New York provides a very strong patent and commercialization support to our faculty and researchers. So it's something people can take advantage of at a very early stage where people with other resources may not have the same benefit. And then the last piece I will say is about where to patent, because I think we're all in different, in the MENA region, and the UK obviously is the outlier here, but in the MENA, certainly the countries are very interested in developing their own homegrown talent and retaining it. And that means, having an IP structure so that you can have homegrown patents. But what people don't realize is you need a patent where your market is going to be. That's why everybody is patenting in a jurisdiction like the US or the EU. They have strong, very robust IP structures, and we're not there yet in the MENA region. So I think there's a disconnect to thinking, I just need to patent where I am right now. It's looking ahead of, that's why everybody files for a US patent or an EU patent.
Okay, thank you. And Mrs. Jane.
I think a lot of what Ms. Robin just mentioned also applies to us over here. I mean, as MBSC, the college itself, we're quite young and we focus mainly on business and entrepreneurship. We have an MBA in entrepreneurship right now. So we don't have a lot of in-house entrepreneurial businesses that need an IP at the current moment. And again, not every startup needs one. Not every startup will end up patenting their creation. But if it is, as Ms. Robin mentioned, lab to market, then definitely they need to look into it and see. Now, if we want to talk about what's happening specifically in Saudi Arabia, there is a huge push from the government to try to entice entrepreneurs to patent within Saudi Arabia. So that is definitely happening, and our rules are constantly changing and becoming more inclusive and more lenient, let's say, or not lenient, but easier to get the IP itself or the patent. But yeah, that's being said, as a college and as a venture lab where we're operating right now, we don't have a lot of businesses that require IPs. Perhaps Dr. Majid can add to that, where he's working right now.
Yes, I was just going to jump.
Dr. Majid, I think you have a lot of input when it comes to patenting and designing applications for corporate applications and incorporating both.
Okay, well, I think you've covered most of the important parts. Again, working with a lot of technologists and researchers at the university, they come up with these really great ideas. But of course, none of these ideas are going to be really useful unless the market really needs it. So this is where you need to go out, start scouting out for applications for them. And of course, the opposite happens when you see the need and you come up with solutions for them. But sometimes after many discussions, you just reach the decision, just like you guys said, we're not going to patent it. We're going to keep it hidden. We're going to keep it there. It's going to be one of the barriers for people to enter this market and so on. So not every time the right decision is to go and patent. Not every time what you have is actually patentable. So every situation has a different scenario. Patenting itself also has a certain process. And this is maybe one of the issues that we have in Egypt. We don't have enough patent lawyers that exist in Egypt. It's one of the issues that most of our entrepreneurs are facing. And this is where we had to start out a patenting support unit inside iHub to support the different entrepreneurs in Egypt generally. Whether they want to go ahead and patent it in Egypt itself, want to go and patent it in Europe or in the US. So we need to take it one case after the time. And I agree with all the different points that you guys said. There's also another part which is also, I think, which is also as important as patenting, which is more about certification. Most of many of the startups, not all of the startups, come up with new services, come up with new products, come up with new ideas. And we always look at patenting to protect ourselves. But many of the people really do not look into the next step, which is, okay, I have a patentable idea, but I really don't know how to go ahead and push it out into the market. And even if I do, and I have this great MVP, I'm not able to penetrate the market because it's not really certified. So certification is also something which is very important. And I think it's extremely important, especially for those who are going into products that are being in close contact to humans and so on. So I'm just putting it out as some of the obstacles that we faced. And I'm glad that most of these items are being brought out right now in this discussion.
Perfect.
Okay.
Who wanted to say something?
I was just going to have one question that has been, it was a topic that Ms. Robin, Ms. Lujain, and Dr. Magid has both three of them agreed of, that not all startups and not all MVPs are patentable. Sometimes you can make a patent, sometimes not. Do we have a clear line that tell us when this is startup, like a fixed criteria or something, even a guideline, when this is startup can deserve a patent and an IP, and we can go through this headache or not? Do we have something like this can guide us and can guide our viewers?
I guess so, yes. Maybe I'm not the best person to do so, but I have two people in the team right now where they actually go through the idea itself or the product itself with the owners, and they can go ahead and tell them and advise them what to do, and tell them if it's actually patentable or not. I mean, it's not really something which is rocket science. I mean, there's a very clear process that you can determine that, and probably Robin can probably add to that as well.
Yeah, so I mean, there are some basic searches that you can do yourself, but as far as it's a different question between whether it's patentable and whether you should patent it. I think it's a timing question, and again, it comes back to resources. It's a very expensive and laborious process to get a patent that a lot of people don't just have that benefit to do. So as far as coming to the timing thing, when do you patent? At least from NYU, when we work with our Office of Industrial Liaison, it's when there's an identified commercial application. It's when there is potential commercial viability. It's not that I invented this new pen and look at this little bob that I can add a really soft tip here, but it has no functional value. It has no commercial value. If I want to patent it because I want to hang it on my desk, that's fine. So I think it comes to the timing. And again, whether it's patentable, I mean, that's pretty clear cut. You can do your searches, and you know, I would say you do need to probably involve professionals pretty early on in the process. But the USPTO, you can do searches yourself pretty easily to do a preliminary search out there.
This will take me to Ryan.
Else I want to add.
Please.
Okay, go ahead. Okay, I just
go
want
ahead,
to
Dr.
add
Majid.
that sometimes we can go ahead and take some steps which are more of a compromise. Should I patent or should I wait? I still need to go ahead and look into more details so that I can double check if I really need to take the step or not. Because just like Robin said, it's a very lengthy process and a costly process. So sometimes what we do is, okay, let's go ahead and take that initial step. It's more what we call a provisional patent.
Yeah.
So in such a case, if I see that, go ahead, put something which is a little vague and it's crude, but it sort of tells what you want to do, but doesn't give off all the details. And let's push out a provisional patent application that buys you a year. And during those 12 months, you can figure out if you really want to patent it or not, or if it's actually patentable or not. And then after that year, you can take the decision to continue or just drop it.
Right. So Ryan, you as a managing director in one of the accelerators that is spread across the MENA region, what are the main change in the seed investment strategy due to COVID-19? What is happening?
I don't know what the true definition and answer to that, because it's one of these.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, it's more of a time sensitive thing. So, you know, how long is this going to last? Is this going to last forever? Is this something that we're going to learn a lot of lessons from and adopt it in our technologies and roll it out to make sure that we don't make the same mistakes, because we might have these pandemics going forward? You know, there's been a lot of talk about the mutations of COVID-19, and that's, you know, worrying as well for humanity as a whole. So I don't think that we have a clear-cut answer to what our investment strategy is going to be going forward. I think what we would like to see is that, and this is something that actually happened in our selection committee today. So we go through, we have 400 applicants every 6 months for Flat 6 Labs Bahrain. It's a program which is open to the world. So we have 50 different nationalities applying, and we bring it down to 20 companies where we usually fly them in to Bahrain for the boot camp and have them physically based here. So now all of this happened virtually. And as you know, early stage seed investment, a lot of it is down to the founder and the qualities that the founder actually resonates. Not having that physical interaction made it a lot more difficult, because it was a Zoom channel, and we try to break out and have breakout sessions and try and get a better feeling of the founder. Is he somebody who's willing to pivot and to change? Does he take instructions on board, or does he just constantly ignore you and continue on his path? So these were a lot of things that we weren't really able to extract as much without having that one-on-one interaction. However, you know, we have to pivot as well as accelerators. So we need to think about new methodologies, new tactics that we can use in order to do things that we perhaps used to do in a physical aspect, but now we have to do it in a digital aspect. So I would say that's one thing that has changed in terms of the way that we sort of do our due diligence on some of these startups. But I think one of the most interesting things was that we actually had a slide in the pitch decks this time, which was, how were you going to run your startup in a pandemic crisis? Like, what are your thoughts on what you're trying to do and how you're going to bring it on to be truly virtual and make sure that you'll be able to monetize and generate revenues, even if you don't have that human interaction. If that human interaction never came back, would you still be a business that we want to invest in? And I think that's really the direction that we're going. I think some of this conversation has gone towards, we've mentioned it over and over again, the fact that e-commerce, logistics, health tech, ed tech are doing well, but it doesn't negate that these other industries will come back alive, but they'll come back alive in a different form. And I think that's something that's really important to take a note of, is that, we won't lose the other sectors. The other sectors will come back. We'll just do it differently.
Mm-hmm.
Robin and Daniel, is it the same thing that you guys are seeing, like quality of applications? What type of applicants are you going to take? Do you see an increase, a decrease? Are people rushing to you with the new ideas and innovations that they want, or people are scared and backed off? You are the ones having supporting from the corporates, Daniel early seeds, and Lujane also can have her input in terms of the quality of applicants that comes to the venture lab, their number. What do you see? It was very insightful from Ryan saying, yes, we are facing a change. That a change is happening. We have to agree. But that does not negate the fact that others will have to survive, right? Agriculture have to survive. I don't know, people at transportation have to find a new way of moving things across. Food, many areas are there.
Yep. So I think the original question is kind of what are we seeing as far as the application process and as operating, incubators and accelerators. And I will say, so this all happened. We were due to run an in-person program April 1st to 14th with 12 startups from anywhere in the world. So when this all started, March 1st is when we actually started going, when things started happening and nurseries shut down and then the university shut down. So we quickly made the call that we were going to go online, but we had to push for 2 months. So that gave us a longer period to actually run applications. And we saw an uptick in applications actually, now that it was going to be a virtual program, still allowing global companies. Now, what we were really holding our breath on is pitching this to our corporate partners. And the sector was it's sustainable development. Our partners are two very large regional contractors, ALEC and CCC, and Oracle. So we kind of weren't really sure what to expect because we measure our outcomes on being able to create those matches. So same with Ryan. We've always done our interview and selection process remotely. We only bring them on and they, at their own expense, we accommodate them once they're here and it's completely free. But we only bring them once they're selected. So we were pretty comfortable and had a multiple gated approach because to Ryan's point, it's hard on a limited or, very finite interaction. So we've come up with kind of multiple selection process to kind of get to know the founder a bit. And some of that is in these conversations and also the materials they present. You can tell a lot about them and their commitment and how they're organized and the way in which you kind of ask things a bit. So we've become very structured in how we do our interview process remotely. So we already had that. Now running the program with corporate partners is going to be a huge challenge. So we've spent, I don't know, probably at least 20 hours with each partner in the past 2 months, like really stress testing, like, are you sure you can run a pilot virtually? Tell us exactly how it would go. What would your IT team say to this? How are you going to onboard this platform? What is your procurement going to say about it? What are all these checks? And they've all stepped up to the plate. In fact, they're all willing to give us more time to different business units since they have more time now, which was, again, one of those kind of total shockers and surprise. Oracle, for example, they're really want to take us to connect to their team in Chicago, which is their construction and engineering team, where we didn't think we would be able to because we normally fly out experts. So we'll see how it goes. We're going to start June 1st now, but I think there've been some encouraging things where I think we're going to attempt to, I think Daniel's program doing kind of a blended approach. If everything goes back to normal, I think we'll still try to retain a blended approach.
Are you investing?
So we have a small seed fund that we had very limited parameters with which we could invest, and it wasn't directly linked to the accelerator program, where now we've actually gone to our board to kind of open that a bit to directly link it to our accelerator, because they're global companies. Our parameters were to only invest into UAE based companies, and now we are trying to open that to allow us to put checks, because the rate at which we're able to invest now is much slower with the same criteria and sector focus if we were able to open it up. So hopefully we'll be able to do that.
So if somebody comes today from the event management industry, or from the sports industry, or from maybe the travel and tourism, are you going to accept them by any means?
It's not a sector we really look at. Retail is the only kind of, I guess, heavily hit industry that we already were in and are still looking at, down to we have a program that's actually for brick and mortar businesses right now, which is terrifying. But some of those are going direct to consumer and different products, different business models. Instead of thinking of brick and mortar as you start with brick and mortar and then you go online. Now it's starting with online, and then you create an experience, and retail is becoming much more of kind of an experience event. So we're not shying away from it by any means. I think it's, and again, we've had huge retailers coming to us with, what do we do? What can we do? We see it as a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, we've invested in actually a company who is more related, and today they currently only work in car showrooms. So it's a VR experience of you feeling out the latest BMW and getting a feel of. It was honestly, it was a bit more gimmicky rather than would you actually purchase a car based on this experience. I wasn't quite sure. But now it's got to the point where, you know, they've got people calling them because they want to, all the retailers want to recreate that experience in store, where you'd be able to have that technology set up in your house. You know, you buy Oculus or you buy, the Samsung headset, and you're able to basically recreate the retail experience from your own living room and add to your cart. I think one of the things that we have not really covered today is what I like to call like forced adoption. So we've had, like, for example, my parents, for example, would never buy supermarket products online. It was just never.
My mom, she would never do this, even up till now, struggling.
Well, this is the thing, there's this clear assumption from supermarkets and so forth that, older people don't want to be doing this and they won't do it. But because of this forced adoption, I think the way that we live today will change, I think, like, for example, my parents will probably shop online for groceries a lot more often now than they would have if this change hadn't come about. So as Lajane mentioned earlier on, there's a lot of benefits that have come from COVID coming in terms of the way that we rethink the way that we live. And, even down to the simplest things, I don't want to slam the travel industry, but, we all get on a plane for one meeting in a country and then fly straight back. Will we continue?
Exactly.
Probably not, because it's so wasteful. It's not needed. Companies need to adopt technologies like Zoom and Slack and so forth. And, they're pointless interactions where you could save a lot of time and you can save the environment from not taking these decisions. So, there's a lot of things that are going to change in the way that we live going forward. And I think this situation has really just tried to highlight and sort of highlight the things that we've been doing wrong, basically.
Danny.
I don't know what I have to add to that. I think, really just to iterate the last couple of points again, it is going to shake up where things are at. So it's our job as incubators and accelerators to support them with those journeys in shaping that future.
I think for me, again, what we're experiencing at the Venture Lab is quite similar to what Robin is experiencing. We were supposed to have a social entrepreneurship incubator program launching on the 3rd of April, actually. And because of everything that's happening, we were going to accept 10 businesses from around Saudi Arabia and host them here in Cake. So with everything happening, we were also forced to push it until we take everything online. And this was good in a way that, again, we had a longer time to accept applicants now. And also we were able to bring in more international tutors or mentors or just more collaborations from outside our facility, because it is now much cheaper to do so. As Ryan mentioned, we obviously can't and we will not be flying people in. But now we can do everything online. And as well, another benefit is that people that were applying for the incubator program are now more accepting, or probably more accepting, of the idea of going online than they would have been before. Before they probably would have been much more hesitant. How is this going to work? I want to come to Cake. I want to meet you guys face to face and so on. But similar to all other industries, just as Ryan mentioned, where people are forced to accept this technology and new way of life, we're also seeing it within incubators and accelerator programs, definitely.
So I actually have a question, if I can pose to the group, maybe if you've done virtual programs or not. So one of the values I think that we can bring as incubators and accelerators is curating a cohort where they can leverage each other's strengths, talents, to the point where we've actually seen co-founders one shut down and jump to the next company and really support each other throughout their journeys, actually be early customers for one another, channel partners, all sorts of things. So what we're really struggling with is, I think clearly we can leverage from NYU. We have learning management tools. We have all the tools. We have all the platforms. We have great trainers. But how do you create community with the cohort? Because that's something that really, if you look at the strength of incubators, accelerators that have been around for a while, it's the strength of that cohesion and that community that kind of perpetuates the brand of that incubator accelerator. So it's something we're trying to think of different ideas, really simple social interactions that can be kind of manufactured to kind of go off on their own, but would be great to learn if you guys have anything that you can share that you're tried, where didn't work.
You know what? I think this is one of my biggest fears. Is we generally tend to see those entrepreneurs who spend the most time in our co-working space, are together the most, interact with the rest of the cohort the most, grow more as people and as entrepreneurs than those that don't. Obviously, we facilitate that at the moment because we have a beautiful co-working space where they can come, they can work, they can play chess together, they can have lunch together. That's gone. So how we do that, I don't know. Yes, we have things like a Slack group that everybody's in. We can hold Zoom calls like this, but we really don't know if it's going to be as powerful as. Well, it will never replace that physical interaction, but how do we mitigate that and minimize the damage that not having that causes? Yeah, so I think we're maybe going to figure out some answers to that, but it's going to be a learning experience. We'd already had the guys, there's a few of us who kind of play things like chess and that quite late after finishing working. So one of them said, right, we're going to do an online chess tournament. So again, just replacing what we do physically with the digital where we can.
So I go ahead. Mr. Majid, all yours.
Oh, I was just saying that I would be interested to see how we can reach a solution to that. We, as a coincidence, back in Jan, we started one of those cohorts that we had. And historically, I would say about 20 to 25% of the cohorts would actually, I would say they would disassemble and they would reassemble again after, people coming in from one startup will go to the other, co-founders go to the other one, and they were in the range of 20 to 25% of them. But in this one that just started in Jan, none of them did that. They don't have the face-to-face interaction. This is extremely crucial for people really to understand, yes, this is not going to work out, and I can see a better, I'm going to jump ship, or I'm going to go ahead and join another venture going on, or maybe new ideas that come out and people really understand, yes, we need to go ahead and dismantle what we have right now, and let's just go ahead and take other directions. How we're going to do that, I really don't know. There are things that you really can't do without having this bond. I mean, it's just like, to me, creating a startup is very, very similar to a person getting his life partner. His wife is even going to evolve. Are we going to be having? I know Ryan would tell me that. I mean, they had already good exit with harmonica and so on, but maybe we'll have something similar to that for start.
That's really cool. So is virtual incubator the next big thing? Do we see more incubators coming together virtually? Do we see incubators being acquired, being merged? Do we see flow of money happening virtually? Do we see startups being acquired because they have been built from there? How does this sound? Is that an opportunity for new entrepreneurs that are trying to find a place in the ecosystem?
Where do we start?
Whoever likes, go ahead.
See, Jamal, what I wanted to say is that with this COVID-19, whatever is happening in the world right now, one of the really positive things that happened is that because there are so many problems and there are so many opportunities, everybody became an innovator. Everybody wants to be an entrepreneur, or they seem to be they want to be, I mean, they think they can be an entrepreneur. This is, of course, giving us a harder time because there's a huge flux of ideas and entrepreneurs and startups that are applying or seeking support and so on. It's a good thing that there are so many right now, because sometimes we had a shortage in these innovative teams coming together and so on. But at the same time, it's gonna put on us a higher burden in being able to identify the best of them that we can go ahead and provide the support.
Yeah,
but
and
go ahead, Robin.
No, please finish your thought. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, okay. But at the same time, one of the things that really I would say positioned many of the incubators that we have was the services they provided to their local community. It was this bond that you had. It was this cool place that you provided people to come in and forget the world outside. And this is where we're coming in to innovate, to collaborate and so on. Right now, this part of having an actual physical space is actually going to disappear. And in such a case, this part that really distinguished some incubators is no longer going to be one of them. So I'm sure that many of the incubators right now are not going to find that they are much different than other incubators around them. And many of the innovators or entrepreneurs inside the country as a whole would be looking into incubators that are even further away from their actual location that they want to apply. And this is where the point that you said, yes, there might be an opportunity for many of the incubators to put their efforts together, to merge together. And this is where you'll have these cool virtual mentoring networks that are going to evolve, that many of us would like to tap into, would like to benefit from, and actually contribute to, so that we can work together to achieve these objectives.
Robin.
Yeah, so the only thing I would add, and it's a bit of a downer, is kind of the reason that we exist and other similar government-backed incubators and accelerators is for economic development locally. And I think obviously that's what was already happening in the region. We were already staring down the barrel of a huge influx of youth unemployment in particular. Like everything else that's happening right now, I see that being accelerated. So again, really positive things that I have seen is we have talked to maybe half a dozen ministries already about what they can do to double down on efforts to support SMEs and entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship education. So I think there will be a greater need for more, call them whatever you want, incubators, accelerators, entrepreneurial support organizations. And if we can have models that are blended or online, it's more resource effective, to be honest. I mean, not attaching oneself to a physical space, it allows us to scale in a way that we couldn't necessarily being tethered to a physical space. So I see that there'll certainly be a need. And then of course, with funding too, like the Flat Six Labs of the world, that's the next logical step after education. We're gonna need a lot more kind of early stage funding for these new SMEs and tech startups that are gonna be coming down the pipeline.
Yeah, just to build on top of that, I mean, one of the things that we haven't really discussed is sort of deal flow. And we've seen a massive increase in deal flow, but we've also seen a lot more attractive pricing as a consequence. Because a lot of these companies are really on the final lifeline, and we're getting better value for money with some of the deals that we're able to do. I think one of the nice points that was drawn out just in listening to the discussions between the panelists was, you know, how you differentiate your incubator or your accelerator. And one of the key things about Flat Six Labs is their demo day, which is, the massive event that we have. It has about 400 or 500 attendees of high net worth individuals, private equity players, VCs, and that physical interaction doesn't exist anymore. So, I mean, one of the largest things that we discussed is that we had to cancel our demo day. And on the 6th of May, we will be doing our first ever virtual demo day. And one of the, some of the concerns that we've been discussing on the conference calls is attendance. You know, the Middle East in particular are not the best at attending virtual events. In the US, you know, it's a norm, and people have the patience to sit there for an hour and listen to the whole conversation. The cultural nuances in this part of the world is that maybe they could tune in for 15 or 20 minutes, but then they'll lose their patience and log off. And how do we keep them engaged? And again, for us, our production is very high quality. It looks very similar to an Apple keynote speech. And to replicate that is almost impossible today from the online solutions that we've been through. And we've had many different providers pitch to us, and a lot of them have been dated, and they don't have the same effect. So we can't do it purely virtual. So we are actually taking each of the teams down to a recording studio, pre-recording them, having backdrops, using CGI and different effects on the videos. We have content that we recorded before COVID, and we're blending that into the show as well. And these are all new things that we have to consider that we've never really considered, but it also brings out opportunity because, those demo days were limited to 400, 500 people. Okay, we used to put them online, but we didn't heavily promote them online. And now they're events where people in the US and Europe can tune into investor bases, which we never really paid attention to, now have access to them. And we can spend perhaps money that we would have spent on the production now on sponsored ads and other forms of promoting the event. So, all of the changes that we're going through have actually given us pros and cons, but I think it's really opened our eyes to a lot of things that we've been doing in the past and we haven't really questioned enough. And is now thinking, like, later on, if we do go back to this normal society where we don't have this virus and, the world goes back to the way it was, perhaps we should just continue with some of the lessons that we learned and, continue the way that we, do a blended approach and not be so single-minded in the approach that we've always had before.
That's absolutely fine. Coming to Robin on one thing that you've addressed, you said that incubators are built for the economic welfare of people where they are, and they need to boost the economy, get people to work, and so on and so forth. So in a hypothetical world or a virtual world, I would say that if since there will be a plenty of startups that might not work in Abu Dhabi, maybe this exact solution could go and work somewhere in maybe South Africa, or maybe somewhere in Yemen, or maybe it could be exported to Egypt, right? And vice versa, because of the timing of the market, the infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So yes, these things are built, and vice versa. So yes, these things are built for the welfare of the economy or wherever you are, yet it could be transported, replicated, and transplanted into another areas. And I think this is the real value and the strength when you said of a virtual incubation. Yes, we want to be beside each other to play chess. Yes, we love coffee breaks because we could mingle and talk. We Arabs love to be close to people and talk and so on and so forth. Yet such experiences could be replicated online, or could be a day or two where people can gather from everywhere to deliver a solution. However, the hardcore of the things can be done online. Do you see the future in that way?
We're already there. We're already there. We're talking to a few cities in West Africa right now. You know, a virtual model, it's when you're in a resource strapped or a more distributed kind of population, having something where you can bring in global resources online 100%. You can scale it up. You don't have to have the physical space. Of course, connection is an issue. So you have to think through what can you do even mobile. So there, it's not just going virtual. What can you do mobile to support some of these different programs? But yeah, it was already in our pipeline, and like everything else, I'll say it 1,000 times, everything's just hyper accelerated right now.
Yep.
Trends that we're looking at. Yeah.
I think something that's worth to add here, Jamal, is that for some of the incubator programs and accelerators, especially the ones that are attached to a university or a college, a lot of our funding and support comes from governmental entities.
Right.
And because of that, sometimes the way that we run our incubator programs or the funding that we provide to startups makes it necessary, or part of the rules that the governmental agencies have or apply on our programs, is that these entities function or benefit the country that, you know, the resources are coming from. So in our case, for instance, we really haven't seen much shift in that notion, for instance. But I do definitely believe that moving forward, we will have to have some more lenient, let's say, regulations. So in our case, for instance, MBSC, we're one of the few colleges that welcomes both international and locals, and we give the same type of scholarships to both of them. So whether you're local or international, you're treated exactly the same way in our college. So because of that, we've requested from entities that are supporting us financially in terms of the Venture Lab that they become more lenient within these regulations. So a lot of, let's say, governmental run or funded accelerators and incubators in Saudi, they don't accept internationals within the startup teams. However, that is not the case with us at the Venture Lab. We accept international startups. In fact, we're one of the few incubator centers that work very closely with SAGIA, or let's say MISA. Now they're called the Ministry of International Investments. So that is one benefit and one way that we do stand apart from other competitors here. But these rules and regulations definitely need to become more lenient moving forward. Definitely.
And if you let me just bring us to the point that, especially with Mr. Okay.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Megan? Go. Okay. I was going to Mr. Ryan, since as Flat 6 Lab is one of the best seed investment and accelerators in the region. I was speaking, if you are not backed up with a governmental fund or governmental entities, but if you are now having a startup that is, as Jamal asked it before, in online and event management or in tourism, are you going to invest in this cycle, or you are going to hold it for the next cycle? Because a lot of startups and entrepreneurs will be interested that they are in the sectors that they are dying now. What is the best approach with them as a seed investor?
Quite honestly, a lot of the sectors that were heavily impacted weren't actually in this investment funnel that we've recently reviewed. I don't know if that was by accident or if it was subconsciously done, but
You're just lucky, Ryan.
yeah, it's not really, you know, the travel industry was not something that we looked at a lot in terms of this particular funnel. To me, again, the answer goes back to if the founder is able to take that industry and pivot it in a way where they can still generate revenue, then I don't have an issue in investing in that company. If they can look at this issue and prove to me that they can make it work through this period of time and they can find different ways of monetizing, then we don't have any bias against the industry. And I think this is some of the key things that I want people to take away from this conversation is don't be put off if you're a founder of industries which have been heavily impacted by COVID-19. Shouldn't put you off the idea forever. You know, we will get back to a state of normality, God willing. But you know, I don't think that, you know, those industries should just be written off. They might be stalled for a couple of months, but then they're not written off whatsoever.
Okay. So some of the entrepreneurs have been under this influence due to a lot of investors have walked away secured deals, and a lot of VCs that have rolled back in its deals. And we have get the news over the internet from the Silicon Valley and all other places what's happening. Do you think that VCs and Angel Network are walking out or are holding their investment currently, and how this is impacting the startups and entrepreneurs?
Well, I mean, we did a report today from Startup Genome, and it was mentioning that, you know, about 30% of startups have been, you know, severely impacted by this. And I think there's a slight hesitation. It's almost, if you even look at the stock market today, as an active investor, you don't know where you stand. You know, you're on this loose ground at the moment, where's the bottom and where's the top? And I think it goes exactly the same for the venture capitalists. So they're in a state of confusion. They would prefer to hold the money for now and sort of ascertain what the risks are, and then perhaps place that money once they get a better feeling of which direction that we're going into. I also think a lot of them are doubling down on the investments that they already have. There's certain investments which were like flourishing and now they're really bottoming out. And they don't want to see those die indefinitely, and that they think it's worth backing with another round of investment to keep them alive, to get through this rough patch, to obtain even more equity. And actually they're actually taking advantage of the situation because the founders of these companies need that cash today and probably have to sell the equity at a lesser valuation that they really want to give it away.
Yeah.
And then at a later stage, when we see some form of normality, they're going to profit from it more than ever. So you know, these are the two ways that you can look at it. I think for, you know, the guys who are really early stage seed, yeah, I think they've been hit a lot harder because you know, that's a riskier investment. So maybe they're going to scale back on some of those. But the ones that, you know, had really good momentum going into this and now have taken a huge hit, they don't want to see those die. They want to be able to come and rescue them, actually take even more equity out of them, and actually you know, monetize even further when they exit.
Yeah, and I think the only thing I would want to add there is that the funds themselves, as their own businesses and entities, you have funds that were winding down anyway, and they're going to be struggling to raise their next fund. But you have new funds that I think, Nua Capital is sitting on $100 million fund that just launched. And there's several others like that. So I think it's the timing of the funds. I think, unfortunately, we won't see a lot of new funds in the next little while, but there are some funds sitting on some real powerful amounts of capital right now.
And building on what Robin is saying to that, you know, it's almost like, you know, let's assume a startup is a property and the property market is diving and it's nose diving hard. do you wait a little bit longer? Do you wait 3 or 4 months for that to bottom out and then go buy that property? Or do you just come in where you are today and buy it at the price it is? You wait, right? It's common sense, it's logic. And this is the same situation that they're in, you know, they're just being clever with their money. And you've got to remember, they're going to lose. They're going to lose on a lot of their investments.
Yeah.
If they're not clever and they don't come in at the bottom end for the ones that they know that are going to pick up later on, and the ones that go bankrupt, they've got to make up for their losses as well. So you've got to take that into account.
Okay. Just make it very clear. Mr. Jamal, can we have now the guest questions?
Yes, good evening, everyone. You have tackled most of the question. You've answered it already during your discussion, but there is something regarding the remote work model. The question is, what is your level of readiness in terms of shifting into a full-fledged remote work model? And do you foresee the necessity for startup to come up with an innovative way that tackles the misconception of remote work in the region?
I believe we've already addressed that question, all of us. Most of us already have shifted most, if not all, of our services online. We're just, if for instance, myself and Ms. Robin, we had new incubator programs that are supposed to launch, so now we're going to shift them online. It's just going to take a bit longer to complete the process, whereas Mr. Ryan, Mr. Daniel, and Mr. Majid already had existing services and programs going online, for instance. In terms of the other part of the question, what was it? Do you foresee the necessity for startups to come up with an innovative way to tackle the misconceptions of remote work? Definitely. This is an opportunity, and we are seeing definitely an increased number of remote workers all over the world. And as it was mentioned earlier, there is less resistance from employers and from managers now to hire remote workers, and we believe that we're going to continue to see this moving on in the future, even after COVID-19. It was actually expected a couple of months ago that in the next couple of years we're going to see a movement towards this, but everything else has just been accelerated now, basically.
There's another question regarding, do you think that COVID-19 will push us to invest in huge online and remote solutions, and we might regret that in the long run from a business perspective? Do you need to be more balanced in our verdict on the business in this stage?
I can answer. I think we don't know. We haven't been there. So, I mean, it's always hindsight is 2020, right? So I think a lot of things will be tried, a lot of things will work, a lot of things will fail. But I do think it's a trend that in some way things will fundamentally change the way in which the majority of us do work, where we do work, how we do work. I truly believe that that is going to be here to stay.
Okay, yes, please answer.
I just wanted to add a small point to that. We're going to see a lot of shift towards supporting online-based startups. But one of the things that we really need to make sure of is that we really do not want to kill the ones which are looking into certain offline businesses, especially if we're looking into hardware-based startups, if we're looking into manufacturing-based startups. Our economy really relies a lot on many of these offline-based businesses. So if we're not going to be having enough of these in the pipeline so that in a few years they go out and they flourish and they grow, then we might be going into or pushing ourselves into a situation where we will have weaker economies that really need these businesses that have offline work.
So let me try to ask here a question. if that will be the case, then isn't it supposed to have more of digital manufacturing, more robotics that are included, more of artificial solutions, maybe cherry picking robotics in the fields, more for robot agriculture, and so on and so forth? Aren't we supposed to start delivering such solutions in a faster based, technology based solutions?
Yes, and I think particularly where we are all situated, where you have very real issues like water and food scarcity, and now with every supply chains being strapped, I think you have to. If you're looking at it from a country level, you have to diversify, and the only way to do that, if you don't have the skilled workforce, is technology is one of those drivers. Whereas you have other economies like the US, where it was very much their human capital was invested in these industries, so they can't afford to accelerate it politically. And as an economy, as much as the economies with which we are situated in, where we're uniquely situated, if you wanted to create, and I know all of our different economies are trying to come up with how to spur local manufacturing. And I think this is local manufacturing and agriculture in particular. And I think we will see huge advances. We already are. I mean, you have the Red Sea farms in Saudi, you have Madar farms, and all of these amazing. I think they just invested 100 million in the last month in 4 agritech businesses in the UAE. So it's here, and I think we are situated in a very interesting place at an interesting time for these things to happen.
Okay, we have a question regarding the supporting or igniting alumni of your program. It says, if the future is not clear, would it make sense to look backwards and see whether you can support and reignite alumni of your program during the pandemic?
100%. And I'm sure we all agree on this. So we actually launched knowing that, we're from a university. Sometimes our processes can be slow and bureaucratic, especially with our own seed fund. It took 2 years to convince the university that we could make direct investments. However, we took immediate action on what we could do in our workaround to immediately offer grants to 4 of our alumni. So it's called Lengthen the Runway. You can follow it on LinkedIn. So we committed 30,000 ourselves to go to up to $10,000 each grants, intended to go to those alumni that are particularly impacted by COVID, and it will sustain what we believe will be viable businesses through this kind of intermediate period. So absolutely, I, like everybody else, I'm sure, doubling down on how we can support our alumni right now.
Yeah, I think we see the people that we've had through the program, the alumni, as our measure of success. We're defined as an accelerator by those people. So it just makes sense that we would go back to them and maintain that relationship with them. If there's additional support we can offer them now that provides value to them, then yeah, definitely that's what we would look to do.
One thing I would also like to add that, yes, I think we're all agreed on this, that we should all try to support them. But one thing also that I've noticed is that many of our governments have already allocated a huge amount of money to go ahead and support the economy in this situation. So, but they really don't know how to go ahead and push it down to those that need it. And one of the things that, since we're really working very closely with the government, is that right now we're trying to channel some of these budgets towards the different startups that really need it, by coming up with new projects, new products, how we can go ahead and matchmake between need and those startups that can provide it, whether they're providing the same services they were, or maybe if they're pivoting a little bit. So I'm sure with all the connections that we have with the existing huge tycoons in the industry and with the government, I'm sure we can funnel in some of these allocated amounts of money towards the startups that we have within our community and our circles.
Okay, do you as incubators and accelerators help companies pivot their business models and market strategy and float the risk with them during COVID-19 crisis?
At Flat Six Labs, we spend a lot of time actually on this. So we meet with them. We've gone for the companies that we were meant to meet on a quarterly basis. Now we meet more on a monthly basis, and we actually go through the whole business model and try and rearrange it to actually fit what COVID-19 is currently doing to the market economics. So yeah, we spend a lot of time with our previous cohorts and even with the ones that have just graduated to try and see how can you monetize, you know, what can you do differently, and how can we help you as an accelerator and as an ecosystem. And it's very important, again, that we bring up the ecosystem. How can we help as an ecosystem promote you during this difficult time? And even if it's not from a financial perspective, but more from a marketing perspective, how can we get your name out there and get you more customers?
I think you made a great point over here. I mean, one thing that we really need to make sure that we are incubators. We don't really own these startups. So what we do is that we want to show them that we are here for you. We're ready to go ahead and give you the advice that you want. Here's a lot of different data and the information that would help you, but we cannot really dictate what they will do. So I think just like what was said right now by Ryan, is that he's there to give them lend them a hand, try to help out, but we cannot really dictate what they will do.
Yeah, and the only other tangible thing that I would add that we're trying to do, so in addition to the grants, we're taking it another step further, and with several of our startups, kind of across the board, financial modeling has not been a strong suit. So we're partnering up with like I said, scalable CFO. They're a startup themselves, but this is what they do. So we're partnering with them because a lot of them need to go back to the drawing board and completely rework their financial models, which has always been a struggle, but particularly now where they need to do it in a very efficient, lean way. So that is something that we're bearing that cost to give them that additional support so that they can rework their financial models to give themselves a chance and see where they can cut here and there and give themselves an extra month or two.
Yeah, go ahead, Eugene.
If I may, I think also that's something that's very important to talk about is that we're not only supporting our own entrepreneurs, is that a lot of us are extending a hand to the wider community. So for instance, doing initiatives like this, webinars or online workshops or hackathon, mentoring to the public, to any entrepreneurs outside of your own community, this is also very important, and it's part of everyone's due diligence, let's say, not due diligence, but everyone's responsibility towards the community that they live and work in. So yeah, this is what everyone here in the panel are doing right now, and thank you for that.
Well, as we say, I'm an alumni myself, so I'm very proud alumni, and that's a part of that initiative, let's say. And I think from that platform, we could come up with really great ideas and initiatives on the go. In the coming minute or two, just in in one sentence or in 30 seconds for each of the great panelists, what would be one advice that you would give to entrepreneurs during these times? Just one single advice, if you may.
I think keep an open mind, keep learning, and yeah, that's it really. That is it.
I would say go back to the drawing board, look at all the changes going around you, and try to keep a good eye on what's changing around you. Don't give up.
I would definitely add stay positive and reassess your strengths and what it is that you can offer in the current situation, and move forward with that and see where you can collaborate as well. Definitely.
I would say to all those entrepreneurs that have any form of revenue, as much time with your clients, make them as happy as possible. Focus on your customers right now. Really, really as much touch points as you can. Focus on your experience, your customer experience right now.
Mohammed, you run an incubator yourself. So please, one advice you would give, not as a moderator now.
Oh, okay. The only advice that I will say, which you will be very close to with Dr. Magid, get back to the blackboard. revisit your business model. A lot of things happening. Pivot until you find how you can survive what's happening and catch more opportunities.
With these valuable words, I would like to thank you very much. It is tough times, so I wish you all stay safe. But as we said always, with tough times and downturns, tremendous opportunities are there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you.
It was
Thank you,
my pleasure.
everyone.
Thanks for the questions from the audience too. They were good.
Yeah, they will.
Thank
Very
you.
valuable. Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.